tragedy in Cuba, and I was like, I need to do something. I want to do something. I want to do something on my part to help a Cuban migrant who's trying to cross the border, and now President Biden has created a program to bring people in through humanitarian parole. And I brought in Diosdani Ramon, LGBTQIA plus Yoruba from Cuba. And he's currently in Nashville, Tennessee. 2 weeks ago, he made it to Nashville, Tennessee. So I was like, Yoruba, Yoruba, let me connect you with my friend. And he was so happy. They both spoke in some 2 or 3 words in Yoruba, and they both felt like, wow, you know, that connection. And at the same time, I ran into people who speak Hindi, the national language, or one of the 22 official languages of India. So to me, this is home, to be able to speak Hindi, Marathi, Gujarati, and then other foreign languages that I learned, like Spanish, and currently learning Portuguese. But to be here, to be able to speak with Mr. Ojan and be like, "Aap kaise ho?" So I was just like, hey, it reminds me of my childhood, growing up in India, where we had to learn 3 languages to graduate. 3 languages. Even though I was at a private Catholic school, I learned Hindi, Marathi, Gujarati, and I learned English, because India was a British colony. So I learned English. And so less commonly taught languages are my heart. I've not taught any, but I did teach Exploring Languages course in Dallas Independent School District, apart from teaching Spanish. So in the Exploring Languages course for my 6th graders, I got to teach them Hindi, or I had to teach them some French or German, because it was a course where you could learn languages from around the globe. So today I'm here just to share some of the many initiatives that ACTFL has and the resources that they have to help teachers of LCTLs like you guys in this room, to help you guys build bridges. And I really want to focus on building bridges and then dive right into my presentation. So just a few weeks ago, they invited me at the United Nations to speak at the UN. And they said, Akash, we want you to talk about how is your work as a global citizenship education teacher helping build bridges. As you look at what's happening right now in Ukraine and Russia, how many, has it been over a year of the war, right? So if you look at what's happening there, or if you look at, just go to the UN website and see how many active conflicts do we have today. And you'll be surprised, it's not just Ukraine and Russia. There's over 50 active conflicts in places around the globe. And I often tell people, your work is so incredible that when folks like Michelle or Mr. Ashok, they're teaching Hindi to a group of students in the United States that have never heard an alphabet in Hindi. But they're like, oh, I learned Hindi. It's helping them appreciate the language of others, the culture of others. And that brings me to building bridges. We have to build bridges in today's day and age, or it's going to be 100 conflicts. And the beautiful way of building bridges is through language. The whole idea of language is to inspire communication. Why do we have conflicts? Why do we have wars? Why do we have all of what's going on, whether it's Islamophobia or homophobia or all the phobias that you can name? Why do we have that? Because somebody says, Mr. Ashok, I don't like the language you speak. Have you gotten that sometime in this country? Does somebody say that to you? Oh, please speak English, or I don't like the fact that these Indian people are speaking English. I live in the South. I have received some of that, where people reach out and they're like, hey, I don't like the language you speak, or I don't like the color of your skin, or I don't like the way you worship. And that's what leads to conflict. And to mitigate that conflict, language plays a critical role in helping build bridges, to inspire global citizenship, to inspire empathy and cross-cultural understanding, so that we can all live in a happy world free of bigotry and prejudice. So I hope today, by the end of my presentation, I can provide you resources that will help you build those very same bridges. And I hope you think of that end goal in mind, that building bridges here, we're not just talking about helping build bridges if you're a teacher of Japanese with speakers of Japanese in Japan. But we think about the building bridges as a bigger umbrella of the work that we're called upon to lead as language teachers, to be champions of anti-bigotry and anti-prejudice and anti-racism. That's true building bridges. When I can build bridges with somebody who does not look like me, who doesn't worship like me, who doesn't share the same faith or doesn't share the same skin color or sexual orientation as me. That is true building bridges so we can live in a happy world free of prejudice and bigotry. So here are some of the initiatives that we have, and then please, I wanted this to be a very interactive presentation, so please reach out to me if there's any questions you have during the presentation. And I want us to start with some questions to outline this session. And the goal is going to be for each person to identify what they can do to build bridges across languages, across programs, across levels, across educators, and the power of collaboration. With the end goal in mind, that we're going to inspire the global citizens of tomorrow that will not start World War III, but that will be the ones that will be the agents of peace and building bridges. So, here's our first question. Why are we teaching our language? Come on, anybody. Guys, I'm friendly. I'm not going to... Go ahead. Why are we teaching our language? Why? Why are we teaching Hindi or Tagalog or Japanese? Why are we teaching the language? Why? To share, okay, to communicate and share with somebody who speaks the language. What else? Why?
To express our attitude.
Ooh, to express your attitudes, your beliefs with somebody else. Yes, what else? Why are we teaching the language?
To resolve the conflict.
Hey, to resolve conflict. Language is all about communication, so when you talk, you can resolve and mitigate conflicts. Yes?
To collect people from different parts of the world.
Yes, to connect. Don't we live in a globalized world? This morning I started my morning talking to a group of global studies classroom students at a university in Bogota, Colombia. And we played mystery hangout. I asked those people because they were surprised, how does this Indian guy speak Spanish? They didn't know I was from India. So I let them play mystery hangout. I said, you guys are gonna ask me questions to solve the mystery of where I'm from. And they figured out I was from India. They're like, no way, Indian guy can speak Spanish? Well, you know what? Language helps us build those bridges and make connections with people from all around the globe. Good one. Why else are we teaching the language to our scholars? Why?
To show that the language matters.
The language matters. What else?
To build mutual understandings between people, countries.
So think of mutual understanding between countries, intercultural understanding. So if you think about this for a moment. What is your why every day when you get up in the morning and go to work? Some might say that my why is my family. Or my why is my passion. My passion is to teach language, right? What is your why as a teacher every day when you walk into that classroom? What should your why be? Who are we serving? Our students, yes! So students in mind, and with all of these amazing things that you guys mentioned, that's what we have to have in mind. So what is the goal of our learners? Why do they want to learn the language?
Connect with their heritage.
Ooh, I love that. Maybe there's a heritage language speaker. Like I was just speaking to a professor of Japanese. Maybe you have a Japanese student in there. Or maybe he's Japanese American, was born in the United States, and he's in there because he wants to connect with his heritage. Yes. What else? Why do your learners want to learn Hindi? Or why do they want to learn Arabic? Why?
Business.
Business. Hey, let's think about money. Yeah, let's think about the financial aspect of learning a language. What else?
To have language skills.
To have language skills, yes. How can we provide continuous learning for our learners? How? Because the end goal also has to be they're not just going to be in your classroom for a semester, it has to be lifelong learning. They're going to continue learning by themselves. Okay, whether it's on Duolingo or whether it's with a peer that they found on the internet, it's got to be lifelong learning. Right? How are you going to provide that for your scholars? How? Anybody? Want to throw something out?
Give them incentives.
Yeah, give them some incentives so that they think that, hey, maybe this is going to be meaningful and relevant to me. One thing I've learned from teaching Spanish, bilingual classroom, math, in elementary to high school settings, if the learning is not meaningful, and if it's not relevant, they will hate your class. Is that right, Michelle? I see Michelle nodding her head. If it is not meaningful, if it's not relevant, why do they want to sit in your class?
It can be fun too, though.
It can be fun too.
Yeah.
Yes.
Fun and the challenge. That's another reason.
Another fun and challenge. Yes, sometimes people do it because it's joyful. time for you, especially a young teacher. I know, first year teacher, what's the biggest challenge? Classroom management. And if your content is not engaging and not relevant, good luck. You're in for a roller coaster ride. How can we support each other as language educators? How can we support each other? Right now in this room, as this is a group of LCTL educators, how can we support each other?
Collaboration.
Collaboration, what else, how?
Sharing resources.
Sharing resources, maybe that worked in your language, that could work in some other LCTL, for sure. What else? Don't be afraid to speak. You see, Akash is friendly. So please speak. Okay? So maybe sharing resources, that's a good one, because I have lots of slides to go through, so let's go get through this. How can we become even more effective as language educators? How? Is NCOLCTL a place to become even more effective language educator? Right, Antonia? Don't you want this place to be? Hey, Antonia, like, yes. So Antonia, this is a place where you can become a more. Why are you here? Why are you here? You're here because you want to become a better Tagalog teacher, right? Yes, and that's why you came here today, so you can serve your learners even better every single day. And how can we collaborate to develop more language educators? So by the end of this presentation today, I hope to provide you resources that ACTFL has so you can answer these questions. Sounds like a plan? And we're going to do it like we're going to talk together, okay? So, and what's your vision for NCOLCTL and ACTFL? So some of you may be members of ACTFL, some of you are not. Maybe, hopefully, by the end of this presentation, you'll consider joining ACTFL and joining me back again in November in Chicago. Because that convention's going to be in Chicago, right? I told you you'll be there, and hopefully we're going to accidentally end up matching. So, why are we teaching our language? So let's look at our why. And that's why I said, always be thinking about your why. Because if you can't answer your why every single day when you leave the doors of your house, then is life really meaningful? So for me, my why is my dead twin brother. My twin brother died 5 years ago. He was 26 years old on April 9, 2018. And his name was Happy. So my why every day is my twin brother Happy, my only sibling. And in his memory, I created a nonprofit that helps connect teachers from across the United States with people around the globe at no cost, virtually. So if you're a speaker of Tagalog, you want to connect your classroom with somebody from, Philippines, I can help you make that connection possible. So my why every day is what can I do to make sure my brother continues to live? So, what is the end goal? What is the end goal? Start with our learners at the center. Our learners are our why, right? The students that you have in your classroom are your why. Do they sign up to learn a language because they're interested in the structure of a language? Or do they sign up to become literary genre experts? Or do they show up because they have a practical use of the language in mind? Maybe personal interest, or maybe study abroad, or maybe my Spanish skills helped me date somebody who was a speaker of Spanish. It worked out. So what is the end goal of our learners? If our motivation is to support our learners, then let's make sure we know what our learners have in mind as their goal for learning. If you know what your learners want out of your classroom, you'll be able to serve their needs better. Correct? Maybe somebody says, I want to learn German because it's the language of STEM, and I plan to work for this German company that's trading with the United States. Maybe that's why they want to learn German. Or, for example, maybe you want to work in Germany, want to become a language teacher, or you want to become a professor. What is the goal of our learners? Learners don't come to language classes motivated by structures of the language. Do they come there because they want to learn how to conjugate a word?
Very few.
Okay. Thank God nobody said yes. No more conjugation words. But like the can-do statements from ACTFL about identity, you're building up from novice can-do statements at bottom, intermediate and middle, advanced at top. Is the ACTFL proficiency pyramid. Have teachers identify the three? So I'm going to show you this. So check this out. I can introduce myself when I meet someone new. What is that? Is it at the bottom of the ACTFL proficiency pyramids of the can-do statements? Is it intermediate in the middle, or is it advanced? What is that going to be?
No, they're not.
Beginners. Yes, it's novice. It's novice. Certainly it's myself when I meet someone new. What about the next one? I can describe the elements of my identity that are most influential on me. Guys, it's a pyramid. So what's the next one after novice? Intermediate. And then what's the last one? I can tell a story of one experience that has influenced my identity or my family's identity. Advanced? Yes, you got it. You nailed it. Those are the three. So here, what is the end goal of our learners? Look at these. Novice low, novice mid, novice high. You know these. So no need to reinvent the wheel because we have existing documents on actfl.org. So go to ACTFL, you can find these existing documents with the goals at ACTFL, and learners develop and grow their proficiency over time. You all know that as language learners. They're not just going to go to advanced in 6 months, are they? No. So they have to go through this pyramid. And what learners can do on the topic of identity is meaningful and engaging at the novice level, but empowers the learner to do more as they grow into intermediate or advanced level. So I can introduce myself when I meet someone new. You see there? It's novice. Next, the one that I said, I can describe the elements of my identity that are most influential on me. Intermediate. Can somebody describe an element of your identity that's influential on you? Something? What's an element of your identity that has influenced you? Think about it in the target language English right now. What has influenced you and your identity? Religion. Oh, that's a good one. Religion. What else? Huh?
Hard work.
Hard work. Yeah, ethics. For us South Asians, it's all about work ethic. Right? I tell people all the time, in my country, when I grew up, it was either engineer, lawyer, doctor, or a disgrace to the family. Same in your country, Nigeria, right? So, hey, it could be peer pressure, it could be societal pressure, right? And I can tell a story of one experience that has influenced my identity or my family's identity. In my case, it would be a personal tragedy. The passing of my twin brother influenced my family and my personal identity today. So, oral proficiency levels in the workplace, again, no need to reinvent any of the wheels. You've got all of this. You can take pictures if you want, but it's all on the ACTFL website. So if our learners want to be able to use the language in their career, here are some examples of the proficiency level they need to achieve. I'm not going to go deep into these details. You have these documents already. So feel free to just Google ACTFL and then go on the website and look up the oral proficiency levels in the workplace. So I'll give you an example. Like look right here, intermediate low for a cashier sales clerk. And let's look at advanced high. Advanced high. Look at some of the professions. Physician, meeting manager, military linguist. Like they're hiring linguists, aren't they? Who's hiring linguists here? Let me see who's paying attention at like visitors. Who's hiring linguists? FBI! I was like, oh, that would be a good job for Akash to have after he's ACTFL president. I'm gonna go become a linguist. I'm a polyglot. I speak 6 languages. They were like, we would love to have you. I said, I'm thinking about it. But I don't have the I don't have the personality to be like an agent. I'll be too funny. I'll be like too laid back. So, proficiency needed for the seal of biliteracy. How many of you, that seal of biliteracy is almost every state in this country, right? Almost there. Almost there. Well, I think David's lying right there. Sheila's nodding her head. What?
South Dakota.
South Dakota is the only one. Oh man, we need to get the work done right there in South Dakota. Michelle, it's just South Dakota now, right? Okay, well, so most states have set intermediate mid or intermediate high as the minimum threshold for students to earn the seal of biliteracy. Here's a comparison of the score on IB or AP exams to reflect different levels of proficiency. And these are exams commonly used for students to earn the seal of biliteracy. Seal of biliteracy validates language and language learning, especially for heritage speakers. Language is now an asset. In many states, students can earn college credit by demonstrating proficiency to earn the seal of biliteracy. Isn't that cool? Free college credit. Because college is not cheap anymore. If you're not going to school in state and don't have grants or scholarships, and if you're going out of state, boom, you're going to be slammed with hundreds of dollars for a 3-credit-hour Spanish 1 course. Right? So, ACTFL's right now at ACTFL. ACTFL envisions an interconnected. People said interconnected, weren't you one of the people? Right? You nailed it. Look, we are all language educators. multicultural education. So to deliver on this vision, ACTFL assessment of proficiency, allowing anyone to demonstrate what they can do with and through a language to demonstrate that they are multilingual, like OPI. How many of you are familiar with the oral proficiency? Weren't we having a conversation? No, that was, yeah, with my facilitator. So OPI, writing proficiency test, AAPPL for K through 12 learners, and OPI and WPT bundle for CELO biliteracy for various less commonly taught languages. Advocacy to ensure that learning opportunities exist for more languages at more levels for more learners with other organizations like the Joint National Committee for Languages or through NCOLCTL to focus on the same effective strategies to engage learners. How can we provide continuous learning for our learners? Remember that question I asked you at the beginning of the presentation? How do we ensure lifelong learning? So, you know, how language programs across this country, I was just speaking earlier today in Hindi with my 3 colleagues, the other colleagues, not you, but the other colleagues that speak Hindi, and they were like, they're under threat of dissolution. And it's not just Hindi. If Hindi is at the threat of dissolution, can you imagine what's happening to other languages? So how can we promote articulation and continuity between levels, between K through 12 and university? So let's bridge the gap. Let's bridge the gap between K through 12 and university. To do that, our learners want to keep going in their language learning. So if they're starting with you, let's say in a FLES program in elementary school and in middle school, and you want to make sure they continue learning it. Maybe for personal, because they have personal interests, or because they want to earn college credit, become a language instructor, or they want to just use it as a physician. So our learners want to keep going in their language learning. How can we bridge the gap so that students don't notice anything different about what they learned in K through 12 versus the university? Are our learners experiencing continuous development of language? Is it smooth and focused on the same goal throughout their language learning journey? Now, how can we bridge the gap? Do we prescribe the vocabulary that is needed to enter a specific course? Maybe your student wants to go to technical school. You can't be teaching them vocabulary on family. Yes, you should, maybe, but really, technical school, medicine, law, do you want to focus on vocabulary that's not relevant to them again? No. So making sure, again, that our learners are getting information that's relevant and meaningful to their desires and their goals for their language journey. And do we identify the grammatical structures that must be mastered to exit a specific course? Is it realistic to expect that they control a structure because we taught it? Or does it take years of immersion and usage to control a structure? Do we lay out specific content or topics that students need to experience before entering a specific level or course? Or can content become the hook that engages our learners to want to use the language? Even students in the same class don't exist with the same degree of knowledge about or control of vocabulary, grammatical structures, or content topics that were covered in the class. Just because I taught it doesn't mean it's going to stick in your students. Correct? It's not going to stick in your students just because you taught it. So look at the vocabulary: food, directions, physical characteristics, personality traits, grammatical structures, maybe direct object pronouns. This is in Spanish, I believe, interrogatives, or word order and other structures, okay? And content and topics depends on what students' interests are. Maybe they want to learn about travel, or literature, or identity, or history, immigration. So how do we bridge the gap? What can learners do with what they know and know how to do? So let's rely on proficiency. What learners can do with what they know and know how to do. Proficiency is what you can do with the vocabulary, structures, and topics that you have been exposed to, become familiar with it in your language learning experiences. Ultimately, I describe proficiency as something that you can use in day-to-day life. If the language learning in your classroom is not something that you can apply in day-to-day life, or if I put you from a Japanese classroom in Japan, you can't use that, or you say, oh, I took 5 years of Spanish and I can't speak it. That's not proficiency. So, you've got to be able to use that. It's proficiency that matches our learners' goals to use language in whatever way that matters to them the most. So ACTFL provides the roadmap to proficiency. ACTFL proficiency guidelines and accessible ACTFL can-do statements, so that's what they're going to provide you, is proficiency is defined as the ability to use language in real-world situations, like I said, in day-to-day life situations, in a spontaneous interaction and non-recourse context, and in a manner acceptable and appropriate to speakers of the language. The major levels, as you know, novice, intermediate, advanced, superior, and distinguished. Like Mr. Ojan is distinguished in Hindi, right? And not dependent on where, when, and how the language was acquired, not dependent on a course curriculum. So here's the interpersonal function: express, react to, and support preferences and opinions. So look at novice, intermediate, and advanced. So if you see express basic preferences in the novice level, react to others' preferences, or I can talk about somebody's preference and just react to it and give my opinion maybe. And express and ask about and react to opinions. Well, that requires a little more, cognitive thinking to be able to react to opinions of others. Express, ask about, and react with same details to opinions, or some details. Exchange opinions and provide basic advice. Explain preferences, opinions, and emotions. And the advanced level, maintain conversations by providing explanations and comparisons of preferences, opinions, and advice. So how can we support each other as language educators? Many of us, especially as NCOLCTL, if you're a teacher of Hindi, you're probably going to be the only teacher of Hindi in the entire institution, right? Or if you're a teacher of, I don't know, maybe Swahili, you're probably going to be the only person that teaches. You're so isolated from everybody. Math departments have people. How do you end up collaborating when you're the only language teacher in the entire campus? I was a middle school Spanish teacher, and I was the only one in a middle school in Texas. So, many of us are the only educator of language at our institution. And ACTFL's mission is to provide vision, leadership, and support for quality teaching and learning of languages. And ACTFL puts its mission into practice by providing ways for language educators to support each other. That's ultimately what we want. We just don't want to give you professional development and guidelines on how to teach the language and what levels your students need to be at. But ultimately, we want to give you resources so you're able to use those resources to collaborate with other language educators should you find yourself in a space like mine, where I was the only language educator in the classroom. So, ACTFL provides convention, which is coming up. Did I tell you it's in Chicago? It's going to be back here in Chicago at the McCormick Center. And mentoring. So, yes, has anybody mentored or served as a mentee at ACTFL? Antonia? How many of you are ACTFL members? How many are not members yet? Hey, maybe I'm going to recruit 2 members. So, yeah, by providing ways for language educators to support each other. The convention, which is coming up November 17th through 19th, 2 exciting keynote speakers. One happens to be an Indian American actor, Kal Penn. I think Kal Penn, from what I remember. Indian American. I'm not big on Bollywood or Hollywood, but he's worked in Bollywood too? Not in Bollywood. He's a Hollywood guy, maybe. Yeah, or maybe on Netflix or something. Yeah. I was like, Kal Penn, I've not heard of him in Bollywood. Who is this? And I really figured out, not just worked in film industry, but he's worked for both President Obama and recently interviewed President Biden. So ACTFL Convention, registration opens now. Fry pre-convention workshops, learn from sessions specifically focused on the language you teach, plus sessions from other educators of other languages. Learn from each other. And dozens of sessions specifically geared towards LCTL educators. Anybody in here going to present at ACTFL or turn in a proposal? Ooh, I see 1, 2, 3, 4. Michelle also turned in a proposal this year? Okay. 5 people. I hope you make it. I think they're going to let you know in 2 weeks or something like that, if I remember the deadline. So, mentoring program. Participate in ACTFL's mentoring program, and as you see, we have a brand new website. So, to do that, you can do traditional mentoring, distance learning mentoring, and hybrid mentoring. So, the traditional mentoring is for those who teach in person. Distance learning mentoring is for those who are teaching online. Anybody teach online? Teach online language? Oh, interesting. And hybrid is for today's mixed environment. Hey. Anybody teaching in a hybrid setting? Teaching in person and virtual? So, ACTFL brings educators together. We have lots of communities on our website. So ACTFL online communities, join the communities that are very specific to you. Like we were speaking earlier, Arabic, maybe you have our own community. Or adjunct professors has their own community. And for those that are very broad, like graduate educators or teacher development. So we have all sorts of communities. And how can we become even more effective as language educators? As we connect to support each other, what can we focus on to help us help our learners? So, what do we teach? It all starts with the World Readiness Standards for Language Learners. Your principal, what does they, or your director, or whoever's evaluating you, what do they want? That you're teaching something that meets the standards. I don't know about university.
Not so much in higher ed.
No, I know, not so much in higher ed. I'm a K through 12 person. Not so much in higher ed. In higher ed, you have more liberty, right? But K through 12, my principal wanted a number, and I told him I can't put a number to some language assessments. I cannot. It's just, you can't do a number. There's got to be a scale for some of these things. And you got to understand, but the guy doesn't speak another language. How do you put that in his head? So it's just to think that, it all starts with the World Readiness Standard. The standards are like the food groups. A healthy diet and a healthy lesson, unit, course, or program is built on a balance of essential ingredients. The 5 C's. The 5 C goal areas. What are the 5 C's? Who knows the 5 C's? What are they? Culture. Communication. Communities. Oh, the community is the hardest one, eh? You send it to number 3, it's kind of like a pyramid. Communities, like, I feel like it's on the number 5. It's so hard to get communities, right? Isn't it challenging? Communities are a very hard one to reach, but a good one. Yes, what else? Culture. Did somebody say culture? Connections. And comparison. You know what? I was at a conference in New York, and a teacher was brave. Hey, Akash, I have a suggestion for ACTFL. And you're going to have to copyright it for me. He says the 6th C is curiosity. Hey, don't copy it, okay? I've got to give credit to the teacher. He said the 6th C is curiosity. Isn't that a good one?
Yeah.
I like it. But man, that's going to be a lot of work for ACTFL to reprint all of those. If you had the 6th C or curiosity. So the standards are like the food groups. So here we have communication, communities, culture, comparisons, connections. That's our pyramid. That's our food pyramid that we have to reach in our classroom every single day with what you teach. And that's going to help your kids have a healthy diet, or your scholars, or your adult learners, a healthy diet of a language learning. So the goal areas are divided into interpretive, interpersonal, and presentational. And communication is paramount, as we all agreed. Why are we teaching the language? For communication. A healthy program balances all 3 modes of communication. The other 4 goals provide what we focus on in tasks as our learners speak, listen, read, view, and write. So, practices, products, perspectives, making connections, acquiring information and diverse perspectives, language comparisons, culture comparisons that you're able to make, and school and global communities. Lifelong learning. I kind of tried to make those connections with Antonia today, right? As soon as you told me Yoruba, boom, 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 I was like, Cuba, Yoruba, slavery. How many things that came to my mind? Religion. And then the guy sends you a message and he's like, thank you. Remember? And you got connected. I was like, Yoruba from education, Yoruba from Cuba, made a connection through one word. We kind of hit all 5 C's in 5 minutes. So, the World Readiness Standards, the American Sign Language, here you're talking about all the different languages. NCOLCTL has been instrumental, and this is something that they wanted me to make sure, Antonia, you're aware that NCOLCTL has been very instrumental in developing language-specific standards, right? So, all kudos, you've been doing this for 20 years. So these are the completed and published language-specific standards aligned with the World Readiness Standards. In development are language-specific standards, right, in Swahili, Turkish, Modern Greek, and thank you, NCOLCTL, for being part of the Standards Collaborative Board, supporting World Readiness Standards as the common focus across all languages, all levels, and all programs. And we couldn't do it without folks like you. So, Antonia, let's hear it for Antonia. Let's make some noise. All right, and the foreign language annals. Anybody written for them?
Long time ago.
Long time ago, okay. But maybe it's time to write again. So, articles showcasing rigorous research, identifying what practices we rely on to make significant impact. The language educator, you might hear from me there every 4 times a year, maybe. Yeah. So recently I wrote about heritage language learners, and who better to write about that than a heritage language speaker? So I spoke about how, my family is at the core of heritage languages. If your family values that language and instills in that for you. Otherwise, if you're ashamed of the same heritage language, we're going to lose it. And that's what happened in my family. They valued it, and that's why I speak Hindi, Marathi, and Gujarati. Right, Mr. Oja? I can speak in Hindi with you. So, the language educator, voices of educators from all languages and levels, sharing what works in the classrooms and programs, ACTFL publications, words and actions, planning units around themes of social justice, targeting all levels of proficiency, even novice, and intercultural citizenship, planning units that develop learners' proficiency and intercultural skills. So my inaugural piece, I wrote about global citizenship and how to inspire global citizenship in language classrooms across the country. So, where can I learn more about effective strategies for instruction and assessment? Where can you do that? You can do that at ACTFL Professional Development. We offer in-person and virtual. I think we have a brand new dashboard, that is focused just on ACTFL Professional Development. So where can I learn more about effective strategies for instruction and assessment? ACTFL Professional Development, again. So whether you're looking for micro-learning courses or advancing your degree, we have options for busy professionals. All of you are busy professionals, I know, especially after the pandemic. So ACTFL Learn Central is your gateway to high-quality professional learning, keeping you connected with the most up-to-date and effective resources in language education. Current courses that we have right now are assisting heritage language learners with existing resources, core practices for effective language learning, and culturally responsive education in the world language classroom. So, ACTFL offers a variety of online learning courses in partnership with multiple universities. You may have seen that if you're a member, you receive communication from ACTFL, that we have partnerships with Boston University, Concordia College, Weber State University, and virtual education allows you to enjoy a more flexible schedule, which is what most teachers want. They want to get a master's or a PhD, they want to do it after school, or after university. Maybe they're just an adjunct at a community college and want to get a PhD so they could teach at a university. And they reduce a degree program